As humans marched to war, I finally understood their legend across the stars. Part 1. Veteran had spent 3 cycles studying humans. And in all that time, he never understood why the galaxy feared them. He was a scholar of the Tuluvian people, sent to the great station called Nexus Prime to document the strange species that had spread across the stars in barely 2 centuries. His people lived for thousands of years and moved slowly through history. Humans lived for less than 100 years and moved like fire through dry grass. This fascinated him. But fear them? No. He could not understand that the legends traveled to every corner of known space. Traders whispered them in ports. Soldiers spoke them in barracks. Diplomats mentioned them in careful tones during negotiations. Humans were Death World survivors. Humans never stopped fighting. Humans would chase an enemy across the galaxy for revenge. Humans bonded with anything, even creatures that could kill them. Humans were persistent predators who never gave up. Veteran had heard all these stories. He had read accounts from species who had fought against humans and lost. He had studied the treaties that ended those wars, always favoring humanity despite their smaller numbers. He had seen the way other ambassadors watched human delegates with careful eyes, but when he looked at the humans on Nexus Prime, he saw only ordinary beings. Commander Daniel Porter was his favorite subject of study. The human military officer met with Veteran every 7 days to play a game called chess. Porter was a tall man with gray in his brown hair and lines around his eyes from smiling. He laughed easily. He told jokes that Veteran did not always understand. He asked questions about Tuluvian culture with genuine curiosity. This was the terrifying human. This soft-spoken man who drank bitter black liquid every morning and spoke lovingly of his daughter back on Earth. Ambassador Elisa Cortez was no different. She was small for a human, with dark hair and quick movements. She worked long hours to maintain peace between 12 species on the station. She remembered the names of every staff member. She sent gifts when their children were born. Veteran documented everything and found nothing to support the legends. Humans were loud. They formed emotional bonds too quickly. They ate things that would poison most species. They slept for a third of their short lives. They were fragile compared to the silicon-based Korath or the armored Drekker. Perhaps, he thought, the legends were simply fear. Smaller species often created myths about larger threats. Humans had expanded quickly, and expansion bred stories. That was all. He was wrong. The day everything changed began like any other. Veteran sat across from Commander Porter in the recreation area, studying the chessboard between them. He had finally begun to understand the game after many losses. The wooden pieces fascinated him. Humans carved game pieces from the bodies of dead trees. His people would find this disturbing. Humans found it normal. Porter moved a piece and smiled. Your defense is getting better. Veteran considered the board. You are still going to win. Probably. But you are making me work for it now. The station's communication system made a sound. Both of them ignored it. Announcements happened regularly on Nexus Prime. Trade ships arriving. Diplomatic meetings scheduled. Nothing important. Then Veteran noticed the humans around them going silent. He looked up from the chessboard. Every human in the recreation area had stopped moving. A woman at a nearby table had frozen with a drink halfway to her lips. 2 officers by the window stood rigid, staring at their communication devices. Even the servers had stopped working. Commander Porter was reading something on his personal screen. His face had not changed. His body had not moved. But something was different. Something Veteran could not name but could feel in the air like static before a storm. Commander? Veteran asked. What has happened? Porter did not answer immediately. He set down his screen with careful precision. When he looked up, his eyes were different. The warmth was still there, buried deep. But something else had risen to the surface. Something cold and hard and ancient. The Drekker Imperium has attacked a human colony, Porter said. His voice was calm. Too calm. A place called Haven's Rest. Vethorn knew of the Drekker. They were conquerors who had carved an empire across 2 galactic arms. They were brutal and efficient. They enslaved useful species and destroyed useless ones. For 3 centuries, they had avoided human space. Everyone assumed it was because humans had nothing worth taking. "I'm sorry," Vethorn said. "How many humans live there?" 40,000. Porter stood slowly from his chair. Plus 15,000 refugees from other species, including 200 Teluvian children in an educational exchange. Vethorn felt his secondary heart skip. 200 of his people's children. Young ones sent to learn from humans, because the Teluvian Council believed humans could teach them about adaptation and resilience. "The children," he said. "Are they safe?" "We do not know yet." Porter looked across the recreation area. Every human was now standing. They were not speaking. They were not panicking. They were simply standing, looking at each other with that same cold expression. "But we are going to find out." He turned back to Vethorn, and for the first time in 3 cycles, Vethorn felt afraid of his chess partner. "I apologize," Porter said. "We will have to finish our game another time." He walked away without waiting for a response. Around the recreation area, humans were already moving toward exits. There was no running, no shouting, no chaos. Just silent, purposeful movement, like a machine coming to life. Vethorn remained at the chess table, staring at the abandoned game. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for Porter's fallen king piece in the corridors beyond. He could hear the sound of boots. Hundreds of boots, moving in rhythm. Humans were gathering. Humans were preparing, and somewhere deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps the legends were not exaggerations after all. Perhaps they were understatements. He left a chess piece on the board and went to find Ambassador Cortez. If war was coming, he needed to see it with his own eyes. He needed to understand what made the galaxy afraid. By the end of the day, he would begin to know. As humans marched to war, I finally understood their legend across the stars. Part 2. Vethorn had seen armies prepare for war before. His people were peaceful, but they kept records of every conflict in galactic history. He knew how the Korath assembled their crystal legions. He knew how the Velas swarms organized for battle. He knew the mechanical precision of the Drekker war machine. Nothing had prepared him for watching humans go to war. Within 6 hours of the news, Nexus Prime had transformed. The human section of the station, normally filled with laughter and music and the smell of strange foods, had become something else entirely. Military officers moved through corridors with purpose. Civilians reported to volunteer stations. Engineers worked on ships that had been sleeping in docks for years. Ambassador Cortez granted his request to observe. She warned him to stay out of the way and to prepare himself for things he might not understand. Then she returned to coordinating with the human government on Earth. Vethorn made his way to the main hangar where the human carrier Dawn's Light waited. The ship was massive by human standards, though smaller than Drekker destroyers. Its hull was covered in scars from old battles. Someone had painted words near the main airlock in bold letters. "We come for our own." He found Commander Porter supervising the loading of supplies. The friendly chess player was gone. In his place stood a soldier with cold eyes and sharp movements. "You want to come with us," Porter said. It was not a question. "I want to document what happens for the historical archives." Porter studied him for a long moment. "You might not like what you see. I need to understand." Something softened in Porter's expression, just for a moment. "Then stay close to me and do exactly what I say." We leave in 2 hours. Vetheran boarded the Dawn's Light and found a place in the observation area above the main deck. From there, he watched the humans prepare. Captain Megan Torres commanded the Marine Forces. She was a short woman with dark skin and scars on her arms. She walked among her soldiers, checking weapons, adjusting armor, speaking quiet words to each one. They looked at her with absolute trust. Dr. Nathan Cole ran the medical bay. He was an older man with gentle hands and tired eyes. He organized supplies with his team, preparing for casualties that had not happened yet. When Vetheran asked how many wounded he expected, Cole said simply, "All of them, eventually." Sergeant Ryan Blake led a squad of 12 Marines. He was younger than Vetheran expected, with a shaved head and tattoos covering his arms. His soldiers joked with each other, but their jokes had an edge. They were pretending to be relaxed. Vetheran could see the tension beneath. Private Amy Chen Vasquez was the youngest. She sat alone in a corner, writing on a small electronic pad. When Vetheran approached, she looked up with wet eyes. "Letters to my family," she explained. "In case I do not come back." Vetheran sat beside her. "You believe you will die?" "I believe there are 40,000 humans and 15,000 refugees on that planet, including 200 kids from your species." She wiped her eyes. "So it does not really matter what happens to me. I do not understand. Why would you die for people you have never met? For children of another species?" Amy looked at him with confusion, as if he had asked why she needed to breathe. "Because they are children. Because someone has to protect them. Because that is what we do." She returned to her letters. Vetheran sat with her in silence, processing her words. 2 hours later, the Dawn's Light launched with 46 other human ships. They jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward Haven's Rest. Vetheran learned more about the situation during the journey. The Drekker had sent 340 warships to capture the colony. They wanted slaves and resources. They expected no resistance because humans had never deployed a military fleet. Outside their own territory, the humans were sending 47 ships against 340. Found Commander Porter on the observation deck, watching the strange lights of faster-than-light space. "This is suicide," Vetheran said. "You are outnumbered 7-1. Porter did not look away from the window. "The Drekker have never fought humans who are protecting children. That changes the mathematics?" "More than you know." Admiral Kevin Shaw addressed the fleet that evening. He was an older man with white hair and a calm voice. His speech was short and simple. "There are children on Haven's Rest, human children, Toluvian children, children from 6 other species who came to us for safety. The Drekker think they can take them. The Drekker think we will let them." He paused. Every screen on every ship showed his weathered face. "Show them why the galaxy tells stories about us." The fleet erupted in sound. Humans cheered. Humans stomped their feet. Humans chanted words Vetheran did not understand but felt in his bones. He turned to Porter. "Why do they cheer?" "They are going to die." Porter finally looked at him. There was something in his eyes that Vetheran had never seen before. It was not anger or fear or madness. It was certainty. "Some of us will die," Porter said. "But we are going to save those children. And when the Drekker see what humans do to protect the innocent, they will remember this day forever." He walked away to join his soldiers. Vetheran stayed at the window, watching the lights of impossible space stream past. He was beginning to understand something. The legends did not come from human strength or human weapons or human ships. The legends came from human hearts, and those hearts were now burning with a fire that would consume anything in their path. As humans marched to war, I finally understood their legend across the stars. Part 3. The journey to Haven's Rest took 14 hours. Vethorin spent most of that time in the ship's archive room, reading human military history. What he found there changed everything he thought he knew. Every legend he had dismissed had documentation, official records, survivor accounts, video footage. He found the story of Thermopylae Gate, a space station that guarded a critical jump point. 300 human marines had held it against a Koros swarm of 20,000 for 72 hours. They had no reinforcements. They had no escape route. They held anyway. When the relief fleet finally arrived, they found 19 marines still alive, standing on piles of Korath dead. He found the story of Callisto 7, a mining accident that trapped 200 workers in a radiation zone. Human rescue teams walked through fields that would kill them in hours to reach the survivors. 43 rescuers died. All 200 miners lived. He found smaller stories too. A human pilot who crashed a damaged ship into an enemy carrier to buy time for evacuation shuttles. A human medic who performed surgery under enemy fire for 6 hours. A human sergeant who carried 3 wounded soldiers through 20 kilometers of hostile territory. These were not myths. These were records. Vethorin closed the archive and sat in silence. He had studied humans for 3 cycles and understood nothing. He had looked at their short lives and fragile bodies and seen weakness. He had missed the truth completely. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they did not care about their own survival when others needed them. The alarm pulled him from his thoughts. They had arrived. He ran to the observation deck and felt his heart stop. Haven's Rest hung in space before them, a blue and green world, much like Earth. Drekker warships surrounded it like insects around a corpse. The colony's orbital stations were burning. Debris clouds marked where defense platforms had been destroyed. Escape pods drifted without power, their distress signals blinking. USELESSLY.340 Drekker ships against 47 human vessels. Admiral Shaw's voice came through every speaker on the fleet. All ships, Battle Formation Alpha. Protect the troop transports at all costs. We are getting our people back. The Dawn's light shuddered as it moved into position. Around them, human ships spread out in a pattern Vethorin did not recognize. It was not a defensive formation. It was not a standard attack approach. It was something else. Commander Porter appeared beside him. His armor was sealed and a weapon hung at his side. He looked at the Drekker fleet without fear. "Stay in the medical bay during the battle," he said. "Dr. Cole will keep you safe. What is the plan?" Vethorin asked. "Break through their line. Drop Marines on the surface. Hold until every civilian is evacuated. That is impossible." Porter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Watch." The battle began. Human ships did not fight like any species Vethorin had studied. They did not maintain formations. They did not prioritize their own safety. They threw themselves at the Drekker line with a ferocity that seemed almost insane. The first human ship to fall was a destroyer called the Morning Star. It took heavy damage from 3 Drekker cruisers. Instead of retreating, it accelerated directly into the largest cruiser's engine section. Both ships exploded. The gap in the Drekker line allowed 2 troop transports through. This happened again and again. Human ships fought past the point of survival. They absorbed damage meant for transports. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They ejected crew pods at the last second and then piloted empty ships into Drekker formations. Vethorin watched from the medical bay, surrounded by wounded soldiers already arriving from the first wave. He saw a human pilot with burns covering half her face refuse treatment until her navigation data was downloaded. He saw Marines with broken bones demand to be sent back to the surface. Dr. Cole worked without stopping. His hands were covered in blood from 6 different species. He treated humans and aliens alike, giving the same care to everyone. "Why are you doing this?" Vethorn asked during a brief pause. "Why are you all doing this?" Cole looked at him with exhausted eyes. "Because those are children down there. Because someone attacked the people under our protection. Because this is what humans do." He turned back to his patients. Outside, the dawn's light shook from a direct hit. Alarms screamed. Reports of casualties came from every deck. But the ship kept moving forward, toward the planet, toward the trapped civilians dot through the viewport. Vethorn saw the surface of Haven's Rest. Smoke rose from a dozen cities. Drekker dropships filled the sky. But among them, like falling stars, came human marine pods. Thousands of humans were diving into hell to save people they had never met. "Commander," Porter's voice came through the medical bay speakers. "First wave has landed. Marines are moving toward refugee shelters. Second wave launching now." Vethorn made a decision. He found a communication officer and requested to join the medical team going to the surface. The officer looked at him like he was insane. "Please," Vethorn said. "I need to see this with my own eyes. I need to understand." The officer contacted Dr. Cole, who agreed. 15 minutes later, Vethorn was strapped into a drop pod, descending through fire and smoke toward a planet under siege. He was going to learn what made humans the galaxy's nightmare. He was going to learn what made them its greatest hope. As humans marched to war, I finally understood their legend across the stars. Part 4. The drop pod hit the ground hard enough to rattle Vithor's bones. The door blew open, and he stumbled out into a nightmare. Haven's Rest was burning. The city around him had been beautiful once. He could see the bones of it beneath the destruction. Parks with strange earth trees. Buildings designed for comfort and community. Playgrounds where children of many species had laughed together. Now, there was only fire and smoke and the sound of weapons. Dr. Cole grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a building with a red cross painted on the door. "Stay close. Move fast. Do not stop for anything." They ran through streets filled with debris. Vethorn saw bodies. Human soldiers. Drekker warriors. Civilians who had not moved fast enough. He wanted to stop, to mourn, to understand. Cole did not let him. The medical station was crowded with wounded. Humans with missing limbs. Aliens with burns covering their bodies. Children crying for parents they might never see again. Vethorn helped where he could. He carried supplies. He held hands of the dying. He translated for alien refugees who did not speak human languages. Hours passed in a blur of blood, and tears. Captain Megan Torres arrived near midnight, carried on a stretcher by 2 of her Marines. Her left leg was gone below the knee. Her armor was cracked. Blood covered her face from a wound on her forehead. She was still giving orders. "The shelter on Quinn Street is clear," she said as Cole worked on her leg. "Get evac shuttles there now. 400 civilians, mostly children." "You need surgery," Cole said. "You need to rest. I need to know the children are safe." Her eyes were fever-bright but focused. "Tell me the children are safe." A communication officer reported that the shelter had been evacuated. Torres closed her eyes and let out a breath. Only then did she allow herself to pass out. Vethorn stepped outside for air. The night sky was filled with light from the battle still raging in orbit. Human ships burned like new stars. But the evacuation shuttles kept coming and going, carrying refugees to safety. He found Sergeant Blake sitting against a wall, reloading his weapon. The young soldier's squad had been reduced to 5. His armor was covered in dents and scorch marks. His eyes were empty. "Your squad held the school," Vethorn said. He had heard the reports. 12 Marines against 200 Drecker for 4 hours. 7 Marines dead, but 400 children saved. Blake nodded slowly. We held. How? Blake looked at him. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he reached into his armor and pulled out a small picture. It showed a human child, maybe 5 years old, with Blake's eyes and a woman's smile. My daughter, Blake said. She is back on Earth, safe. But when I looked at those kids in the school, I saw her. I saw all of them as her. He put the picture away. So we held. Because that is what you do. You protect the children. Always. Vetheran sat beside him in silence. Near dawn, Commander Porter found them. He was wounded too, a bandage wrapped around his chest, but he was still moving, still fighting. We have a problem, he said. The Drecker commander is holding hostages in the government building. 300 civilians, mostly children. He says he will kill them if we do not surrender. What are we going to do? Vetheran asked. Porter's eyes were cold. We are going to show him what happens when you threaten children in front of humans. The assault on the government building was something Vetheran would never forget. Human Marines moved through the structure like ghosts. They used no heavy weapons near the hostages. Every shot was precise. Every movement was calculated. The Drecker outnumbered them 3-1, but the Drecker were fighting for conquest. The humans were fighting for children. Vetheran followed the medical team in after the shooting, stopped. He found Commander Porter in the main hall, standing over the body of a Drecker officer. Around him, human soldiers were carrying children to safety. Taluvian children. Human children. Korath children. Velith children. All of them alive. A young Taluvian girl grabbed Vetharis' robe. She was maybe 6 years old. Her eyes were huge with fear. Are you safe now? She asked in their language. Vetheran looked at the humans around him. Bleeding. Exhausted. Some dying. All of them still working to save others. Yes, he told her. We are safe. The humans came for us. She wrapped her small arms around his leg and cried. He held her and watched Commander Porter organize the evacuation of the last hostages. One of the Drecker warriors was still alive, wounded but conscious. Dr. Cole moved toward him with medical supplies. The Drecker flinched away, expecting torture. Cole knelt beside him and began treating his wounds. Why? The Drecker asked in broken human language. Why help enemy? Cole did not look up from his work. Because you are wounded. Because I am a doctor. Because this is what we do. The Drecker stared at him with something that might have been horror or wonder or both. Vetheran understood now. This was why the galaxy feared humans. Not because they were monsters. Because they were something far more dangerous. They were protectors who would never stop. They were warriors who showed mercy. They were legends written in blood and kindness, and the galaxy had just been reminded why you never threaten what humans love. As humans marched to war, I finally understood their legend across the stars. Part 5. The battle for Haven's Rest ended on the morning of the second day. Vetheran stood on a hill overlooking the main city, watching the last Drecker ships retreat into the darkness of space. They fled with less than 100 vessels from the 340 they had brought. The rest drifted in orbit as burning wreckage, or sat on the surface as captured prizes. The human fleet had paid a terrible price. Of the 47 ships that had come to save Haven's Rest, only 16 remained. Thousands of Marines would never return home. The Dawn's light had survived, but barely. Half its decks were open to Space Dawn, but the civilians were safe. All 40,000 humans. All 15,000 refugees. And of the 200 Taluvian children who had come here to learn from humanity, 198 were going home. 2 had died in the first Drecker attack, before the humans even arrived. Veteran had watched Captain Torres weep when she learned this. Not for herself. Not for her lost leg or her dead soldiers. She wept because she could not save them all. Because 2 children had died on her watch. The humans considered this a failure. Veteran considered it a miracle. He walked through the city as the sun rose higher. Everywhere he looked, he saw humans helping others. Soldiers shared their food with hungry refugees. Medics treated wounds without asking species or citizenship. Engineers worked to restore power so families could find each other. Commander Porter found him near the ruins of a school. "Your High Counselor is coming with the relief fleet," Porter said. He looked older than he had 3 days ago. Tired in a way that sleep might never fix. "You can go home soon. What will you do now?" Veteran asked. "Bury our dead. Rebuild what we can. Make sure this never happens again." "How?" "The Drekker will return. They will want revenge." Porter shook his head slowly. "No, they will not. Word will spread about what happened here. The Drekker will think twice before attacking anyone under human protection. That is how this works. That is why we fight like this." Veteran considered this. You sacrifice your lives so others will fear to challenge you. So future wars will not happen. Something like that. They stood together in silence, watching human soldiers carry bodies to a growing memorial site. Each body was wrapped carefully. Each face was photographed. Each name was recorded. The humans would not forget their fallen. "I have studied your species for 3 cycles," Veteran said finally. "I thought I understood you. I was a fool." Porter almost smiled. Most species make that mistake. They see our short lives and think we value them less. They see our fragile bodies and think we are weak. They see our emotions and think we are irrational. And what are you really? Porter looked at the memorial, at the row of covered bodies, at the Marines standing guard over their fallen friends. We are beings who understand that some things matter more than survival. Family, children, the people under our protection. When those things are threatened, we become something else. Something old. Something that comes from a world that tried to kill us for 1,000,000 years. He turned to face Veteran directly. "You asked why we fight like this. The answer is simple. We love. We love fiercely and completely and without limit. And when something threatens what we love, we become the thing that nightmares fear." 3 days later, the Taluvian relief fleet arrived. High Counselor Myrith came personally to collect the children and to thank the humans for their sacrifice. Veteran stood beside the counselor as they watched the last evacuation shuttles depart from Haven's Rest. The Taluvian children waved goodbye to the human soldiers who had saved them. Some of the soldiers waved back. Others wept openly, unashamed. "What will you write in your report?" Myrith asked. Veteran thought carefully before answering. He had spent 3 cycles among humans. He had thought he was studying a curious young species. He had not understood anything. "I will write the truth," he said. "I will write that the legends about humans are wrong." Myrith raised a brow. "Wrong? After what they did here?" "Yes, wrong. Not because humans are less than the legends say. Because they are more. The stories speak of humans as warriors and survivors and conquerors. They do not capture what I saw here. And what did you see?" Veteran watched Commander Porter saying goodbye to a small Taluvian girl, the same child who had grabbed his robe in the government building. Porter knelt down to her level and said something that made her laugh. She hugged him, and he held her gently, like she was made of glass. "I saw a species that will burn worlds to protect the innocent," Veteran said. "I saw soldiers who value mercy alongside strength. I saw people who weep for strangers and die for children, not their own. The legends call them monsters. They are not monsters. They are something far more dangerous. What? They are heroes. Not because they are fearless, but because their fear does not stop them. Not because they are invincible, but because they will break themselves before they let the innocent suffer. He turned to the High Counselor. The galaxy fears humans because it does not understand them. I understand now, and I am more afraid than ever. But I am also grateful, because if darkness ever comes for our people, I know who will stand beside us. The relief fleet departed Haven's Rest that evening. Vethorin stood at the observation window as the planet fell away behind them. Down there, humans were already rebuilding, already healing, already preparing for whatever came next. In his cabin, he began writing his report. He wrote for days, filling page after page with everything he had witnessed. When he finished, he added one final note. When humans march to war, the galaxy does not fear for itself. It fears for whatever dared to threaten what humans love. I have seen the legend made real. I have watched humans bleed and die and weep and fight with a fury that shook the stars. I do not know if we deserve their protection, but I know this. As long as humans exist, the innocent will never stand alone. He closed the document and looked out at the passing stars. Somewhere behind him, humans were burying their dead and comforting their wounded. Somewhere ahead, children were going home to families who had nearly lost them. And everywhere in between, the legend grew. The legend of a species that refused to let evil win. The legend of humanity.